There we go. So we are live again on October 26th and delighted to have you here. My name is Stephen Fetter and I manage the United in Learning program for the General Counsel Office. So again, it is my delight and privilege to welcome you into our monthly workshop for church treasurers. It's quite a community we're building. It's really fun to see how it's developing and how people are supporting each other. It's always fun to watch the chat and see that half the questions that get asked are answered by other people in the community before Eric even gets to them. So thanks for joining us, and thanks for making us a regular part of your month. I'm delighted to turn things over to Eric Matheson, who will lead us through this week's program again. Eric, over to you.
Okay, and I'm just trying to find my slides again, which I just lost.
Oh, I can see them, so they're here.
Okay.
Although I'm seeing your edit screen, I'm not seeing your presentation screen.
Right, well, let me do that again. Okay, and let's see if we can do slideshows from the beginning, and we should be good to go. Okay, folks, good evening.
With respect, Eric, I'm still seeing your edit screen.
Oh, okay.
That's what you're sharing right now.
Okay, stop sharing. Share screen one more time. My apologies, folks. This should do it.
That's why we rehearse these things, right?
That's it. You'd think after about,
thank you, Eric.
You'd think about it after about 40 of these, I might. I forgot over the summer will be my story. This is the seventh one in 2002. Anyway, welcome, folks. We've got a fair bit of good, new, and timely content for you tonight. So I think you'll be glad you joined us. I'm just waiting for my screen to change. There we go. Regulars will know that I post the creed every time. For me, it's always worked as the call to the for action to the church, and you'll know that I read a land acknowledgement instead of reading the creed. Tonight, I ask each of you to just think of where you are, and either in the chat or just a mental note of a land acknowledgement. But I'd like to mix it up a little bit and share a prayer that was translated from the Cree. And I actually got this from a work of fiction from a Saskatchewan writer, Gail Bowen, who does mysteries, but has some very strong Indigenous characters in her books. And so this is, actually, I have it in Cree and I have it in phonetics, but I'm going to read it in English. And you'll thank me for that, believe me. Our Father, bless us this day, for your breath is life, and bless us here together. Give us strength and wisdom to listen and to hear, not to follow enviousness. Give us again to see sunrise and sunset. Thank you. We are all most thankful, hoping that will happen. So to that I say amen.
Amen.
And we'll give you a quick recap of what we're covering tonight. So some changes in budgeting news, and one of these is going to be really weird to explain, but the cost of living has been retroactively changed by Stats Canada at least twice since we last met. So I'll explain what we're doing there. The assessments, all the assessment information is online. A number of HR reminders related to year end, and lots of news on the insurance front, some refinements and so on. So, and of course, we'll take all your questions as well. So whatever else you'd like to include there, Clyde will cover off some things on T4s, and we even uncovered a situation with ADP well in advance this time, so we can head things off when it comes to the November 11th statutory holiday. So first of all, COLA, it's been updated online and it explains why, but we announced a number of 3.2% back in September. And within a week, some people called in and said, hey, Art, that StatsCan, you must have misread the StatsCan exhibit. And I said, well, I might have misread the StatsCan exhibit, but the other 10 people who, and not only that, but we even had a screen grab where we had it. So I don't know if you've noticed, but there's been a lot of articles in the paper. StatsCan has been retroactively changing numbers quite regularly. If you go online to the normal StatsCan exhibit right now, it actually says 3.5%. But what we've decided is we're locking in at 3.4, which is the number that was in place October 1st. We can't be flip-flopping forever, and we're already flip-flopping here. So the minimum salary exhibits have all been updated and are online at 3.4%. And those of you who've been especially keen, and done your calculations and everything else, I apologize. But it wasn't me. Again, this is applicable most directly, like mandated, required for the minimum salary chart for ministry personnel. But it typically serves as a guideline for lay salaries. Now, one of the questions in the chat box already was around the mileage reimbursement. The mileage reimbursement mandated by General Counsel is 46 cents until year end. And then it goes up to 55 cents, which is basically is the maximum that the CRA allows and what most other churches and private sector companies and so on use as their number as well. Until recently, until that gas spike this past year, we'd always used 3/4, 75% of the maximum. But when we saw that everybody else, lots of our peers were at the higher number, we decided to keep it there. And this information is all available online at the link that I provided here. But basically, it's the compensation schedules that you look for every year, and that we normally post by July. This year we waited because of all the inflation action and trying to find a balance between the fact that our ministers and our lay staff need to cope with inflation, and yet yet it's a huge stress too on the congregation. So the balancing act is to apply our standard policy, which is going to be 3.4%. As I said last time, we recommend continuing to use 27% for total employer benefit costs. There are some increases in CPP and EI. That again, these are, if you're using ADP, these are things you don't need to know except for the budget side. So these will be, and the benefit cost, any benefit cost changes go to the General Counsel Executive in mid-November, and will be announced right after that. Okay, here's one that people have been asking about, the cost of living groups for ministers. There's been ongoing studies for this, and this is a bit of a pre-announcement. Again, the report and everything else is going to the General Counsel Executive, and there are changes. There are changes both up and down. And the approach that would be used here would be to lock in the ones that would might otherwise go down, and phase in the increases. And the recommendation that senior staff are making is to begin that effective July 2023. So there's a bit of a phase in. Okay, this was last time, the deadline. If you haven't acted on this, you're not going to, but there is a federal grant window open right now. And I do point you to the Tuck resource. It's there on the slides. excellent resource, not only on describing the program and what are the best ways to position yourself, but just lots of really good advice. And although it's put out by the Toronto United Church Council, it's good across the country. They do a great job with their property related advice, and I recommend the website. Okay, this just crossed my desk. I got an email from Canada Helps, and I said, well, gee, maybe I need to remind folks, this is the season when a lot of people make stock gifts of appreciated stock. And given the way the stock market is, maybe there aren't as many appreciated stocks as there were last year, because things are pretty bad right now. But if you don't have your own direct brokerage account, which is a hassle to get, I got one from my church 20 years ago, and the paperwork was daunting then, and it's probably more now. The foundation offers a service to congregations, and they do charge now a 1.5% fee. But as you can see, that's half of what Canada Helps or any other service will do for you. So well worth it if you have donors interested in doing that. And I'm not going to get into explaining all the tax advantages and stuff, but folks who hold securities, it's a great way to donate in an even more tax advantaged way. Okay, again, there's some of you who are asking about paying off your loans this year, the CEBA loans or the United Church emergency COVID loans. For both, you don't need to repay them this year. You've got another year of grace that's interest-free. However, if you are paying one off, this is how you pay off the one to the United Church. To pay off your loan with a local bank, you should contact them, but you should basically be paying the net number that you're going to repay net of the grant. So if you had a $60,000 loan, you'd be repaying $40,000, and if you had a $40,000 loan, you'd be repaying $30,000. And recall that Clyde explained to us all the goofy accounting that went with it in terms of booking the revenue long before you actually got it. Okay, switching gears, and then we'll slow down for questions. Just to say, your assessment statements have been online for a good long time. They're basically finalized now based on all the statistical submissions that came in. If there's something wrong, you could try to reach out to Susan Jackson, but she's used your submissions and then worked with some of you to clean them up. And again, all pastoral charges across the country are billed at the same formula for 2023 after some years of transition to catch everybody up. And the whole idea, this model, it's been painful, at the general counsel office level, for example, because the amount of assessment has decreased while folks were closed, right? But that's what it's supposed to do. The whole idea of the model was to have a contribution or assessment that moved up or down with the financial health or capacity of our funders. So the two things here: the statement, all the statements are on Church Hub, and everybody here, I expect, like on this webinar, probably has their Church Hub account. Many of you have been regulars. You've been early adopters. You've got your CRA account, and I hope you're out telling other treasurers they should be doing that. But we do use Church Hub as the mailing database now. So if you're a treasurer, or if you are the main church administrative contact, those are the two addresses that we need to have current. Get in there and make sure they're current, because we will be doing a broadcast with your, confirming your assessment notices at the end of next week. Okay, this is a little slide that shows you where to look for the reports in Church Hub. But there's also a one-page for, no, with all due respect, for dummies guide. Yeah, I would have to use this guide, so it's for everybody. But a guide on how to find your reports if you need it. It's on the assessments webpage. And I would if you don't go in there too often, I would recommend printing it out just to remind yourself. But it's there for you. A lot of these guides, we're trying to get them online and point people to them so that that you can build a bit of a file for those of you who are looking to pass it on to your successors. Okay, so we talked about assessment and some of the budget stuff. Steve, are there any questions yet, or I would invite some? This is a logical break point here.
Great. Only a couple of questions so far, but maybe as we talk more will come in. This is the time, folks. And let me mention, we've got 19 people watching us at YouTube, as well as the folks here in Zoom with us, and I'm watching the chat there too. So if you're watching from YouTube, feel free to use the chat there, and we'll pick it up. You're about 15 seconds behind us. So the sooner you get it in, the more likely I am to see it before Eric goes on to the next slide. So Michelle had a couple of questions before we began. One of them has been answered, was just the current mileage rate. But she was also asking, last month's slides say average hours should be noted as weekly. And we've always recorded this as monthly because that number feeds into the ROE. Was there something about weekly? I don't remember what you said about this, Eric. Can you remind us on that?
Well, I can guarantee it wouldn't have been me who said it.
Okay.
Clyde, do you have some comment here?
Yeah, I think it was commented on with regards to the payroll. And unfortunately, I agree, it has to be the average hours for the pay period, not a weekly figure. Because as Michelle has pointed out, it does go on to the ROE, and it would be cut in half roughly.
Okay.
So Clyde, could you, for me then, as someone who doesn't work with this, can you clarify that it should be the same as the pay frequency as opposed to being weekly?
That's right. It's the pay frequency. So if you've got a salary or hours of 40 hours a week, if you're paying on a monthly basis, that's not just 4 times, that's 40 times 52 divided by 12, which comes out to somewhere in the ballpark of 86.67. And if you are paying a semi-monthly, then it's half of that.
Okay, and Michelle, I'll also go back. Angelica is on a very well-deserved vacation this week, but I'll follow up with her to make sure that we either get that updated on a guide or make sure that everyone's on the same page. Thank you.
Yeah, I've corrected a couple of payrolls this week in processing for the weekend that we're way under the hours. So.
Okay,
good.
Steve?
Thank you. Richard is asking for discussions with our congregational councils. He says, will the 2024 cost of living allowance continue to be based on the same formula as this in past years?
That is the plan, and that number will be higher. That number will be in the range of 6%. Because as you'll know, we've had 8 and 7 and 8 and 9% type numbers throughout most of this year. So we use a 1-year lag, but we also make sure that we catch that up so that people aren't losing buying power over the long term.
Well, as an employee, I'm grateful.
Well,
not every organization is doing that.
Well, a lot are, but again, I just projected something like that. That number will hold. That will also be a pressure point for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it sure will. It sure will. That's going to be hard, I think. But as Richard comments here, that's important for communities of faith to know soon. So next question from a new treasurer, from Marion. How do we budget for payroll? She says, what's this 27% number that you're adding to salaries? How does this work?
Well, we have a, how do we, first of all, to answer the question, there would normally, and there will be online, some tools called tools for treasurers, where you would just input the salary of any of your, the 2023 salary for any of your individuals. And it would calculate the benefit cost. There's a little taxable benefit number for life insurance, and the deductions and so on. Clyde, you do more of that than I do. Is that a fair description?
Yes, it is. And I've taken it further and added in so I can work out what the total cost to the congregation will be for each person.
Yeah.
It includes CPP and EI, and it works quite well.
So where will Marion find those tools?
Right now, actually, you should, I would recommend you go in and look at the current worksheets that are there. If you Google United Church Tools for Treasurers or anything like that, you'll get the prompt, and you'll see the 2022 worksheet. And what I would do is calculate one for each and every individual. I just do a little printout once a year. Clyde, I don't know if you do the same. You probably save paper and do it all on a spreadsheet or something.
Well, it's on the spreadsheet, but it is printed out each year for each church.
Yeah.
So I've just put the link in. Amazing how quickly Google comes up with that.
Yep.
So it's there in the chat for folks who would like to try that now. And you say that the 2023 ones will be available next month.
I think the target is to get the general council executive approval on the 18th. And so it would be 21st. It should be online.
Okay. Thank you. I'm not seeing other questions at this time, folks. If you have any questions, we'll save them for the next round, but feel free to add to the chat whenever you like. And I'm just keeping track of them in a Word document as we go along. Eric, back to you.
Okay. So switching gears again, a few things about ADP, and Angelica spoke to the need for just being a little more thorough with input and so on. Sorry, I'm watching to see what my dog is eating. This is new for me. This is a guide from ADP that's available on the in the ADP system. They don't let us put it on our public website. Steve and I have taken the bold decision to put it on the ChurchX website because it's behind a password. We may have to undo that, but for the moment it's there.
I'm not going to tell them we did it.
Yeah, I'd go get it if I were you. But anyway, it's this is just part of the table of contents. But for anybody new to payroll, this is the step-by-step guide, either for run as is payrolls. Excuse me just a second.
Isn't it fun to have a new puppy?
Yeah, this guide is actually very good.
I always joke about other people having to deal with animals, but just to show you, the dog was chewing on a blue marker and just chewing the crap out of it.
There you go. Wait till tomorrow and you'll see it all over your backyard.
Oh, yeah. Well, on top of that, we've already been to the vet on what it's ingested. Anyway, enough of that. The table of contents is here. It is behind the wall. It has to be behind the wall. That's an ADP legal requirement. So go get it now, or download it. And it's on their ChurchX. It's with the slides. So I would say go get it now.
Yeah, I will show you at the end of the webinar tonight before we leave. I'll show you where it is at ChurchX, but it should be there for you. And this next one is too.
Yeah, this next one is, but this next one is also on the church website because it's something that Angelica and Eileen and their team put together. So again, there's a list of year-end payroll reminders. The most important being, you should have a look at what the summary report is for the year, or what it's projected to be. Because at the end of the day, even though ADP will submit it, it's your report. And again, Clyde can jump in, but this is a key part of the ADP review, whether you run as is, or whether you're more active making changes each month. And I've just put in a few of the reminders. There's a full page on the church website and on ChurchX for you to have a look at. Okay, Clyde, you're going to jump in here because you've done a little more work on this than that. Clyde this afternoon flagged for us that at least one or two of his clients, or maybe more, might have a problem on November 15th payday because of the timing of the stat haul. I have escalated this to ADP. They're going to see if they can fix it in a bulk way. But at least for those of you on this webinar, you get the first notice that there's an opportunity. You can change your processing date just by clicking on a button on this page in the ADP system. Clyde, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah, I was processing payroll for semi-monthlies, although I have one that's on a monthly basis dated the 15th of each month. And I just happened by chance to notice when it came up for the next pay period that the 16th of November would be payday. I remember the last time this happened back in September, and it caused a lot of grief for many people. So I went in and changed the payday to the 15th. But I also had to back up the input date so as to get enough working days in the spread between input and the actual payday. And so at the moment, your input date is probably the 10th of November, and I backed it up to the 9th. Yeah. And after I did this, I then got on the line with ADP and just verified that those dates would still work, even with the 11th being a closed day for banking and ADP.
Yeah. So
they've given us the blessing on doing it. I have now changed 14 different pays for that purpose, and they were very easy to change. Go into your payroll schedule and just request a change, and you can put it right online. And just change those two dates and we're good.
James is asking, why do we have to do this manually? He says our payroll automatically backs up to an earlier date whenever there's a bank holiday or a weekend. So what is going on here?
Well, we could comment. I don't know if James is with another provider or something, but the bottom line here is we've caught it early enough. I'm on ADP right now to make this change automatically. Clyde has reported it's we're a couple of weeks ahead of the game at least, and they don't have it automated. But as I say, right now we're trying to see if we can make a wholesale change, and or we'll be getting the word out to people as we are tonight.
And is this a change people can make themselves self-service, or do they have to sit on hold like Kathy is for an hour?
No, please. No,
talk to somebody?
It's self-serve.
It's click on a button. It's it literally says "Let's go" or something cute on it. Mm-hmm. But again, I flagged this as late breaking news. This is something that Clyde literally caught this afternoon, and we've been able to do some work on it. So I'm just moving us forward. Happy to field some questions on that. Clyde, maybe you could say a few words about employee versus independent contractor. You, of all people, know this. And
thanks for the reminder.
Okay, and the next slide, of course, is a T4A.
So I think a couple of people here are asking for a little more specific instructions about how to make that change. They need to just kind of walk us through quickly, if you can, Eric. Where do they go, or how do they change it? Because Kathy really doesn't want to spend an hour on hold.
Oh no, you absolutely don't need to phone. They've already got, this is a notice right from the, if you log into TeamPay, I think you get this notice right up front now.
Yes.
And there's a button to click on too.
There's a notice there. Even if you don't get the notice, there is a place on your on the payroll screen that comes up first when you log in, where it talks about this payroll schedule. And you can go on there and request a change, and that change then brings up 5 or 6 different dates that are all on the schedule for each pay period. And you can pick the pay period that is for the 15th of November and just make the changes on the 2 dates, the input date and the payday.
Yeah, and as I say, it's right up front there, and at one click. Do not get on the phone, folks. I say that as someone who just that drives me crazy.
Yeah, I called on it only because I wanted to make sure that the spread was going to work for us so that I could make comment tonight.
Yeah.
I was sure that it would, but I wanted to be positive.
Yeah.
And what happens if people don't change it? Like James says his payday is always on the 25th. What happens if he doesn't change it for Christmas? Does that mean the employees won't get paid that much? James says we've never changed it. It just has gone out the day before automatically.
Christmas is a normal one. It's a statutory holiday. November 11th is not statutory. November 11th is the equivalent of the September 30th date, if you remember, for the Truth and Reconciliation Day. And it's only some employees, and that those are the ones that are federally regulated. And that's why the banks will be closed on November 11th, but provincially they're not affected. And so that's why this one doesn't work automatically.
Yeah. Now, that being said, as far as I'm concerned, James is right.
Yeah.
Like, hey, they should all work automatically. However, we've got some, there will either be further communication on this saying, never mind, Clyde and Eric have raised this early enough that we've automated, we've changed everybody, or there'll be more communication on this. But you get first notice because of Clyde's work today.
Thank you.
Okay, can we move ahead then?
So everyone on this, the regulars here have heard this a few different times. So I'll just do the lead in by saying lots of churches are offside with the CRA when it comes to what they think are independent contractors, where either you're doing it to try to avoid having EI and CPP and potentially income tax, or the person you want really was insistent and wanted it. All I'll say, and I'll turn it over to Clyde, is it isn't relevant what you would like or what the person would like. It becomes a matter of interpreting CRA rules. And with that, I'll turn it over to Clyde.
You're quite right. It's interpreting the CRA rules, and unfortunately, the only interpretation that applies is the CRA interpretation. And so make sure that you've got, if you've got an independent contractor, you've got a contract with them, not an employee contract, but a contract for independent work, and that you're not claiming they have to work set hours, and you're a number of other things that are all shown on this chart, just to make sure that they're independent. And if they are, then you are supposed to issue a T4A form for them. And the T4A, most of us would do very few of them, but they can be done in a number of different ways. There is a program right on the CRA in your My Business account. If you go into Payroll, there's a place there where it can lead you to being able to do the T4A forms. And when you push the button after typing them all in, it will automatically just submit them for you. You can still go in, make corrections and additions later, so it's not an impediment to have them submit online. In fact, it's much easier. Some of your programs, if you're using an accounting system, have the ability to set a code in the program so that it knows when a T4A is required. And I say that because the independent contractor is anybody who you pay money without taking deductions. And this includes guest ministers. They all, whether they like it or not, they all are supposed to get T4A when they've done a church service. However, the minimum T4A is $500. So under normal circumstances, depending on how you pay, if you paid, say, $250 and they preach for 2 Sundays for you, then they're automatically going to get a T4A at the end of the year, or should automatically get a T4A. I have set up in my own church where if I've got a guest minister in, I add them to my system, but I also have them give me their complete name and address and social insurance number right on the very first one, just because I've now planned for my year end. And so when I'm done, the program will produce the T4As for me if the payment outlay is more than $500, excluding HST. So,
and Clyde, maybe I'll just jump in to say many of our music directors, custodians, and youth, Sundays, if there's a nursery school supervisor or something, are part-time employees. No matter if they don't have multiple clients, if they don't bill HST or GST, HST, I think more and more treasurers have cottoned on to this. But the reason we flag this is it's a CRA rule, and the penalties can be significant. The last church I heard from this past year, the penalty was about $8,000. They were a slightly bigger church, but it is 3 or 4 years of both employer and employee contributions that the CRA auditor says should have been collected.
yeah, and it's normally 4 years because that's as far back as they can do the audit on, unless they find something drastically different. And I've never seen one go back beyond 4 years, but 4 years of EI and CPP for both employer and employee is a significant dollar, and you can only go back to your employee and ask for 6 months of their portion. You can't even reclaim a full year from them. And I know because I've been there.
Well, and the other thing is you probably don't want to ask an employee after the fact to say, hey, the way we've treated this, we'd like you to now pay from what we paid you. Anyway, we flagged this because T4A reporting is a regular thing. You can do it on the CRA, my account. You can do it on the ADP account as well, although I confess I've never done that myself. But just flagging it for you now as we go through these things.
Yeah, one more thing with it is there are some people that will balk at giving you the social insurance number. You can fill out one of these T4A forms without a social insurance number, but make sure you have written request for the information at least 3 times. And if you still don't have it, file it without a number.
Yeah. So Clyde,
if you don't have that, you'll end up having a upwards to $1,000 fine.
Yeah.
For not getting a social insurance number.
Yeah. So this is where Clyde gives you the right answer, and I tell you, I ain't doing that. It isn't in the same way that a treasurer has to get people's birthdays to file annually on the T1235 form. You have to get their social insurance number, and if you want to let someone vent for a while, but I'm not going to document 3 requests. But those of you who are nicer people than I, by all means, follow Clyde's example. Any other questions on this before we go into insurance again, which is my love and hate at the same time?
So James writes here, traditionally CRA has not enforced getting T4As for, quote, fee for services for independent contractors. I'm not sure what he means.
Fees for services is what they call an honorarium, because there's no such thing in the tax law for an honorarium.
Yeah. And this gets to where if an individual truly is an independent contractor, and therefore, for example, bills HST, GST, then people don't generally, like, it isn't an absolute requirement to issue a T4A for that, but they have to pass that test first, James. And that's the part where, frankly, a lot of our people fail.
So, and Kelly's asking a question about a person who does the snow removal for several local churches. He invoices us, doesn't charge us tax. Should we assume we give him a T4A?
That's part of the gray area, but because you know that he's doing it for several churches, I would not worry too much about a T4A in that situation.
I agree.
Yeah.
But I would encourage you to document that just to have on file. Hey, contractor. Ideally, that person would claim a small supplier GST exemption. And frankly, if they're doing it at a scale that's below above the 30,000 each winter, then the CRA would want to know about that too.
Yeah.
The other thing with this, and some people wonder about it, a number of our church treasurers get an honorarium every year. You should be issuing a T4A to yourself if that amount is more than $500.
Yeah, absolutely.
And don't argue about giving us your your social insurance number.
Yeah. Or actually, in that case, I'll make an exception, Clyde. If there's someone on this call who wants to argue with themselves,
yeah,
knock yourself out.
So I've got a question from 20 minutes ago when you were talking about that ADP user guide.
Yep.
Ray was wondering whether it had been updated since the beginning of 2022. Is this the most current information?
I would bet that it's first of all, it's their job to have the most current version online. I can't answer whether it's been updated since the beginning of 2022. I would think it would be more static than that, but the best way to do it would be to download a current copy.
Yeah, probably the reason they don't want us posting it publicly is they want to make sure that old versions are taken down in a time.
That and their legal department is very sticky about anything like that.
Yeah.
Those are the only questions I have, gentlemen.
Okay. So changing gears again, folks, which we do, as you know. I'm going to dive into a lot more detail on the insurance changeover, and there's basically two buckets. There are folks, about half of congregations in the country, that are in the current affinity program, which is called UCC Protect. It's with Intact or RSA, and I say that because it's Hub is the national broker. You might have a local broker, and RSA was our insurer, but they were acquired by they were gobbled up by the biggest insurance company in Canada. So again, for any new people, insurance premiums, it doesn't matter who you're with, have gone up by 50 to 100% in some cases in the last few years. And we've been trying to figure out what to do with that. Those people who are in the affinity program, they've all been re-underwritten in the last year, which is one of the reasons that I've been able to recommend moving to this captive or self-insurance arrangement where the church will take on more risk nationally with our balance sheet, with the hope of providing a significant benefit and relief to congregations. So this is just an overall industry context. Things are stickier, rates across the board. And a key point, empty or closed buildings cost 2 or 3 times more to insure than an active building. And there's various safeguards that you need to take into place. Again, this is a repeat slide for my regulars. If you've got an older building, it's increasing. There's going to be questions around what upgrades have been done. There have been many more requests for appraisals. Now, it's a good idea. I used to say it's a good idea to have an appraisal every 7 to 10 years. The insurance industry is saying 3 to 5, and we're haggling on that. But don't be surprised to be asked for an appraisal. So in the last couple of years, we've done some things with the affinity program to try to keep premium increases down at least a little bit. But we've now pulled the trigger. This summer, the General Counsel approved a proposal that I and the Finance Committee and so on have been working on for a number of years, and a decision to go with full self-insurance. Now, that means that we're literally taking $3 million from the balance sheet, and if claims behave, we'll be saving congregations $1 to $1.5 million a year. Like, the return is spectacular, but that's a big if. If there's a really bad claims year in the first year or two, I would need to put more money in at the national level. And the target is to have 15 to 30% savings for the existing folks that we know we've underwritten. And we believe that we'll also be able to offer significant, but not as necessarily as big as that, savings for folks that are insured elsewhere right now. So just for those who are new, I know there are a couple of new treasurers. There's different kinds of insurance. So property and liability insurance is the kind that you get yourself. It's probably about the third or fourth biggest item on your expenses, right after building costs and like salaries, building costs, and insurance is right up there. Now we're offering a national program that we think will be very attractive. This approach has worked tremendously well in the States, and we're expecting that it will here as well. Directors and officers is already something that all congregations have automatically. If you're a congregation in good standing, you have that automatically, and it's free in the sense that I pay for it nationally. Nothing is free in insurance, but this way we make sure that all congregations have this insurance. There aren't very many claims on this, but it's pennies on the dollar to buy it for everybody on an umbrella basis versus individual congregations buying it. It's literally pennies on the dollar. Third-party insurance, which we recommend for your tenants and users of your building, that's available online again in our affinity program, and it is separate. It is not part of the self-insurance program. And finally, cyber insurance is something that we've had in place on an umbrella basis for a year, and the existing insurer learned more about our overall national profile and refused to renew. So I'm negotiating right now to get some kind of replacement insurance, but at this moment we don't have any nationally for congregations. We do have it for the denomination, where we have things like multi-factor authentication and all kinds of cyber risk safeguards. Okay, so I'm getting to the rollout, and first of all, there's about an 8-page frequently asked questions on the insurance website now. So even just as simple as helping you identify, are you in the program or not? Because frankly, I'm going to say dozens of people didn't know or weren't sure. From the, I have received some hundreds of emails on this. So the existing participants, whenever they renew, will receive a new policy from the AIG is the new insurer that is issuing the policy, or we'll be working with to issue the policy. For existing participants, credit for a lower premium will begin December 1st. And basically, of the 50% or more congregations that are already in this, you have to opt out. Like you'll be rolled over automatically unless you tell your local broker, or unless you tell somebody, no, I'm going to go get quotes somewhere else, and I'm going to go somewhere else. You'll be rolled. This is like an automatic renewal, and the only thing that will be required is a new bank information, because there's a new insurance arrangement, a new person to be paid. The other thing that is a plus, we had this really goofy lump sum for, we've always done self-insurance on a limited basis. It's called the group funded deductible on your statement. That goes away. Your premium is going to be, I think it's 11 months. If it's 12, I'll beg forgiveness next time, but level amounts. And that's how, basically how this program is going to be administered to be the most streamlined possible. So that'll be a nice feature as well. So those are the first things I'd say about the rollout. Second, the target savings. Now, again, you need to know, and by the way, we're dealing with treasurers here mainly. Treasurers are the people we know to contact. We don't have a trustee database. So you need to reach out to your trustees if you aren't one. If your trustees handle the insurance. At my church, the trustees handled the insurance until about 25 years ago when they forgot to renew, and they flipped it over to the treasurer, because the treasurer tended to look after bills more consistently. However, your church probably follows the manual or follows the guides, which says trustees look after insurance. Anyway, if your UCC Protect policy renews in December, you'll get a 15% reduction, and your pre-authorized amount will reflect that beginning December 1. And the only qualifier there, that is if you haven't increased your amount, your replacement values, or done some kind of change. If you've done some kind of change, then obviously the arithmetic changes. If you're a September renewal, you need to pay the higher premium, and by the way, 17 or 18% increase for September, October, and November, and then we'll reduce that. We took steps to, when we knew it was approved, we issued 3-month policies there. So if you have a September renewal, and you might just even now be receiving your policy, we pay that premium and you'll be looking at a nice reduction in December. If you have a March renewal, you'll again get that 30% rate reduction. But in 2023, we are going to be adding some factor in for an inflation. And the 5% number I'm using here is what every insurer I've checked with has cited so far. So again, we're going to run this like a business. We're trying to provide relief, significant relief, but that doesn't, we can't do that without this being viable as a standalone business. June, same deal. Now, you'll see September is missing. That's because we lumped September and December together. But December 1st, that group, the December renewals did not get an increase in December, the increase that everybody else got in 2022. So, however, they got the 15% reduction, and they'll get, they'll be looking potentially at a 5% inflation. So that's where we get the, I hope those numbers make sense. I've been looking at this so long, I'm probably making it sound simpler than it is, but the idea is that over the calendar year to treat everyone equitably. Now, new entrants have to be underwritten. So if you're with Ecclesiastical, as many are, a very good company, or if you're with a local mutual or something, there's all kinds of arrangements. We'll talk about what those requirements are. But again, the differences here, in the premium reduction, basically reflect what you already did in 2022. Okay, new entrants, and I want to say, I think I said this last time, we're very focused on, there's lots of people who said, I want this right away. And I've had to, want to be really careful about setting expectations. We will look at new business, but it has to be really, it has to have every I dotted and every T crossed. And specifically, there needs to be a complete application. We need to see the amounts and related for the existing policy, and there needs to be a recent appraisal. And that last item is probably the type, like is a knockout for some of you. It's certainly a challenge across the country. Again, when we're quoting, we can't guarantee the savings because we don't know on what basis. In some cases, an underwriting decision might have been made as a favor to, like there's all kinds of the amounts might, there might be a disagreement around the amounts. There could be any number of things, but we have a duty to our reinsurers to maintain, to deliver a more flexible but still prudent underwriting policy. And this last point where it says new entrants will get a short-term policy. So if your current policy expires April 1st, for example, we would, and you want to have continuous coverage, we would issue a policy to June. So literally in this case, a 2-month policy to bring you into one of our billing cycles. And that frankly, that's not new. That's what they do all the time. But if anybody who has an unusual date is going to need to fit the December 1, March 1, June 1, and potentially September 1 might come back. But that's part of streamlining the costs and keeping it simpler. Okay, a few other things. And as this is a little bit like the old government announcements, okay? I'm still negotiating with reinsurers. I've been out late this week, sorting out all kinds of things. But first of all, Newfoundland and Labrador has its own all-in program. Like I don't believe there's any choice actually in Newfoundland and Labrador. If you're a pastoral charge there, or an outreach ministry, or a low-cost housing provider, you're in this group program, and frankly, a lot of what they do is what we're modeling into the national program. But they have their own program for now. It has I think a January 1 renewal, if I'm not mistaken. So it is not part of the. No one there is eligible for this unless or until the regional council looks at it for next year. The coverage amounts, limits, wordings, everything are going to be identical. There's no, we'll have the sample wording. If we don't have it already, we will have the sample wording online, but it's the same as your existing policy. The one thing, I have received a list, and I just got to have a look at how I'm going to be reaching out to some places in BC. But our reinsurer, our main reinsurer, is not prepared to offer or support earthquake coverage in BC, in certain parts of BC. And I think there's a list of about 15 or so existing folks where I'll be reaching out and saying, if you have earthquake coverage, and many out there have actually elected not to have it, and it's got like a $250,000 deductible, by the way. But that's one of the takeaways. So here what I'm trying to share is we're trying to be totally transparent, and we're rushing this in to get the savings available. There are going to be some bumps on the road, and the earthquake business, for example, would have happened anyway. So that was, a number of insurers have made that decision this year, but it will apply to us because we are asking the larger companies to reinsure us. Okay, now here's the first glitch that's really stupid, and I was quite angry when I heard this, because I don't mind people making mistakes and stuff, but I expect them to catch it early. And this was just a couple of weeks ago, or about 10 days ago, that if you have a September renewal date, you were chugging along. You just finished 12 months of pre-authorized. You probably just gotten your policy, and were going to be 3 more months of pre-authorized deductions. That's what I was assuming. But the insurance company, the shortcut that we put in, the insurance company can't administer. And this is Intact. This is the biggest insurance company in Canada. So we will be coming out to about 140 individual pastoral charges, and just there'll be different ways it'll be communicated, but you'll need to pay that higher premium that happened at renewal for 3 months before you get this new policy in December that will have the nice premium reduction. So if you're not a September renewal, you can ignore all this, but it's just another level of complexity as we are frankly rushing the process to get the savings to you. Okay, again, it's got to run like a business. We anticipate the first 6 months or so to be focused on the existing folks who've been re-underwritten, and then we'll probably be able to look at streamlining the underwriting requirements for new entrants. We'll also be looking at a few different options for coverage where it's clear that you wouldn't replace your existing building. And this is in the sense of if you have a 700-seat cathedral that was lost in a total loss, there are lots of places that wouldn't replace it as is. In fact, I'm going to dare say most, if not many at least, wouldn't replace it as is. So then we need to say, well, hold on a second. Then why do we have to pay the full premium? And part of the answer is because most losses aren't full losses.
Yeah.
So there's a real, there's some complexity there, but we hope to be able to offer some education and some premium reduction or flexibility. I mean, in the extreme, we might say that in certain situations, if your region concurs, maybe you insure for wreckage value, like just enough to clean up the site. That's the extreme example. Okay, folks. So I just covered. I said it verbally, but I want this big red X out there because our existing insurer, which is the biggest insurer for cyber, or one of the biggest certainly, didn't like the fact that we didn't have safeguards like multi-factor authentication and those kinds of things at the congregation level. And frankly, some congregations do have it. But I'm trying to find an umbrella coverage that provides some degree of, with a reasonably low deductible that we might pay for nationally so that everybody has some coverage. What I've X'd out here is what coverage was in place for 15 months before it was canceled this summer. I have a proposal coming in from another cyber company next week. And I don't want to get people's hopes up, but the numbers could be, the stupid numbers or unaffordable numbers. But I'd also like to be pleasantly surprised. So we'll see.
Eric, before you go on to another topic, there's a whole slew of questions. I think to some extent people are getting into the weeds here, but I wonder whether we should pause for a few of these. Would
Sure.
that be okay with you?
Absolutely.
Okay, let me just pull up here. Actually,
I'll just go back because this will be a distracting slide as much as anything.
Yeah, no, I think.
Yeah, this is the key point.
Sure. So our trustee, let me back up here. Our insurance renewal is June. When should we expect to be asked for an appraisal? We haven't had one for a long time.
Well, first of all, if you weren't asked for an appraisal this past June, we won't ask you for one. That could mean that using rough estimates and so on, that your insurance value seems reasonable. So if you're a current UCC participant with a June renewal date, you will start to accrue a reduced premium, a 30% reduction, December 1st. We will send you a check for that difference in premium in next May, June at renewal time. and then your policy should renew at the lower premium plus a 5% inflation factor. And we will ask you for banking information next May.
Thank you. Robin says, our insurance through Hub was to renew last July 2022. We haven't received a new policy, have not paid any premiums for that renewal. We've been advised we're still covered, notwithstanding. When the new policy is enacted, will the premium only be due from the start of the new policy or backdated to our July 2022 renewal?
Yeah, I'm going to assume that it's well, first of all, there's a remote chance, a tiny chance, that you're with Hub and not with the national program. So feel free to send me an email. My email is going to be at the end of this, but otherwise, there are exception lists where cases are being where there are still questions. Underwriters are still questioning stuff, or there are requirements. If you have a June renewal, which is what the normal cycle is, there is an exception list that I'm working with right now to clear, so that when we switch over, all of those people know exactly where they stand. But the first test here is to confirm that your policy says Hub and Intact or RSA on it, and have a look at the FAQ and send me an email. But and more to the point, if you haven't gotten your policy, you will still have to pay the premium up until December 1, the higher premium, to be fully up to date, because that money goes to the old insurer. And the switchover happens with the new, and there's all kinds of complicated accounting in the background, but you will need to pay the higher premium for any months that you haven't paid.
Thanks. So Jim says, our trustees started using an outside insurer a year ago. The policy was renewed as of September 2022. Can we get back in, and how quickly?
Well, first of all, most insurance policies are somewhat punitive for partway through the year. So my advice would be, and you know, we might have some historical information in your case, but my advice would be to look at this next spring with your next renewal date, because you're already into a policy year.
And similarly, Dawn's asking for new entrants. Who applies, how and when?
It depends. The questions I ask is, what is your renewal date? Do you have again, the requirements were a current appraisal. So if you have a current, like right now, I could look at, or I could arrange for you to be looked at. If you have a current appraisal and are willing to fill in an application and send us, include your current coverage summary, we can look at you now. But many folks might need to get an appraisal first. So the first test is, who are you insured with and what is your renewal date?
Okay. Thanks. Are you doing anything for people who just rent space, or is there a tenant type policy?
Yes, there are coverage that cover, you know, some people just have that. And we expect we'll be able to offer savings there, although the saving, you know, is more likely to be in the 10-15% range as opposed to the 30. This has to do more with the expense and property being the larger. Property is the elephant in the room in insurance. So liability insurance costs only have so much extra, like it's basically going to be the elimination of commission that we will be able to offer as a saving there.
Okay. Thank you. I've lumped a few questions together, but I think I've addressed everything on the list except for questions about third-party insurance that you're going to address now. So
okay,
let's go back to you. And if I've missed somebody's question by mistake, then please put it in the chat again, and I'll pick it up next time around.
Now they know where to find me. A number of third-party programs, for whatever reason, and I think COVID was a huge factor. You know, like things were closed forever, right? One of the providers that I was recommending was Front Row, and they're out of business at the moment. They claim to be, you know, negotiating to come back in. But right now, you can get if you are a existing UCC Protect member, which is again, it's half the congregations, you can get third-party insurance online, very quick hitter. I tested it myself yesterday. So for example, if you have monthly meetings of some group, the annual premium is $100. And there was provincial sales tax of $8. So it's $108 that one of your tenants would need to, and they could get the certificate online.
So you'd be recommending that our tenants get this through them?
If you're part of the program already, then you're eligible. The tenants of United Church Protect participants are eligible to apply online, and it's a very relatively painless thing. The thing that I'm pushing for right now is to open that up to any United Church entity, and the reason that it's not there right now is a systems reason, because the online function doesn't know about these other United Church entities, right? They just know the ones that are registered. So we're trying to solve that, and we're hoping to make third-party insurance available, in an expedited online, relatively cost-effective way for all entities. But right at this, and by the way, the insurer has agreed to that. However, we can't do it administratively yet. So right now it's limited to those who are UCC Protect participants. Now, that being said, whether you are or not, it doesn't matter who you're with, your insurer would want you to have and your insurer might have a way for you to get third-party insurance through them if you're not with us.
And you said this would be available for monthly groups. What about one-off parties and weddings and funerals?
Same thing. You tick a bunch of questions around frequency, and if you're going to mention wedding, whether there's alcohol and stuff, those kinds of things. Whether there's there's a whole checklist of based on frequency, nature of activity, that kind of thing. So that's third party. And just to say, if you are a hub participant, the service has been pretty crummy of late, and part of this, we're making it very clear. I mean, we're investing financially to reduce premiums, but we're also expecting to streamline a lot of the back and forth that has been so agonizing. Right now I'm saying must be superior. Frankly, that's a low bar.
Mm-hmm.
So
there are complaints in the chat. That's why I'm giggling.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that, again, our focus in the short term is getting those December and September people switched over. And then we'll be way readier for the March people and way readier still for the June people. But even look at the policy. So for December renewal, I'm telling you here that I would rather get the premiums reduced for everybody and do all kinds of problem solving under the surface. But the actual, and we'll have, I think, 2 separate letters where we give you written confirmation that coverage continues. But the policy itself, the sample policy will be online all along, but the policy itself, right now I'm aiming for January. And again, if I was doing this as a business, I might do it 3 or 6 months slower. But we are trying. This is the most tangible way we have thought of to be able to provide relief to congregations on a significant cost item. Okay.
So a question that I missed from Ian. Our current policy is with an outside broker, comes due on December 1. He wants to jump into your plan. Is it possible if he gets an appraisal done before December 1 to jump into your plan then? And if so, when does he have to notify his current insurance broker?
Well, yeah, you use different language there. It can't be the insurance broker who wants to do this.
No, he's using an outside broker. He wants to leave them behind and come into your plan.
Right. So
he's wanting to know, is it possible to do it that fast? And when does he have to give notice to the old company or the old broker?
Well, you've got a grace period, I think, I think it's the sort of the 20 days for sure. It might be 30. It depends on your policy. But the first test would be whether you can have a current appraisal. You need to meet the 3 elements that I described earlier. And in particular, I mean, you can fill out an application. That's easy enough. You can provide your copy of your current coverage. That's easy enough. The one that might be a challenge for you is having a current appraisal. And depending on where you are, it's all very nice to say get an appraisal, but there are parts of the country where that's really tough to do. So yes, it could be considered if you have and particularly it can be considered if you already have a current appraisal in hand. Current being 2019 or more recent.
Thanks. A couple of questions about third-party insurance here. One says that their local broker has done spot checks in the past to ensure that they have third-party in place for their user groups. Are they entitled to this information? Is that normal? Do others do it?
I'm surprised. That sounds like a very diligent broker, is all I'm going to say about that.
So, says James, for budgeting purposes, we won't see a December invoice till January with the policy then. Should we just, how do we budget for this? We just estimate 15% less?
If you're choosing to participate, the December premium will go down for December and September renewals. Okay, because we're issuing new policies then December 1st, this assumes that we get your new bank information in time. December 1st for renewals that are September or December, there'll be a lower premium coming through your bank account.
Okay.
For those other ones, the premium begins to accrue. I personally wouldn't bother accounting for that, but Clyde might. And by the way, Clyde, that's a compliment on you following generally accepted accounting principles and my being less inclined to at a local level. But again, the lower, what you could do, like if you have a June, let's say you have a June renewal next year, then you might, if I were you, I would count for budget purposes, your premium to go down. It goes down 30% for the first 5 months of the year. And then it gets an inflation bump of 5%, but it's still down 25% for the whole year.
So who can do an appraisal?
It needs to be a certified, I listed the 5 national companies on an earlier slide. And there are other other appraisals, but they need to be a certified professional appraiser. And it's for insurance purposes. It's not market valuation. It's for insurance purposes. This is very much a specialist field. You get a report that's typically 30 pages long. They measure everything. They poke around. They're on site. And I'll tell a Toronto story. I'm still having this verified, but one of my staff is the chair of trustees for a large Toronto church, and she. The appraiser they had flew in from Edmonton and apparently lived here for a month and did like 85 appraisals, including this is a multi-million-dollar stone church in downtown Toronto. So I have various people chasing this. We are trying to procure national discount deals, incentive programs, and so on for appraisals, because appraisals are a pain to get if you're not in a major urban center.
Valerie's wondering how to update information with the CRA. She's wondering about ownership of the building. I'm not sure what that's about, but generally, who has the authority to update churches' information with CRA?
Well, first of all, I think I know what that's about.
Okay.
And Clyde, jump in too. Many of us don't have our church building on the books. I know of one church for sure that Clyde does, that is, probably, the replacement cost is probably 10 million, and it's on the books for $1 because it's considered fully depreciated.
Oh, Valerie is saying, no, you're misunderstanding her. She's not talking about ownership of the building. CRA calls the people who can do things with them as owners. So the owners of the account then.
Oh, well, Valerie, again, feel free to clarify, but the issue comes where you're reporting a building value on your T3010 annual return. From a CRA, from a legal perspective, it is the ownership title is typically held locally. Ideally, it would say the trustees of XYZ United Church. And the reason I say that is instead of naming individuals, then you'd have to change it every time. So it depends if you're talking legally to do something, or if you're talking what is filed with the annual charitable return. So I'm happy to take that offline if it helps.
Sure. And Valerie, let me tell you, there is a PDF document of slides at ChurchX about completing the T3010 annual charitable return. And there would be stuff there to respond to that question too.
Okay.
It's available at ChurchX already.
Okay. So here's what I'm going to beg of you folks who are still on here tonight. The self-insurance questions is a new generic email. I had my email go out on 3,700 emails at the end of September, and it's almost killed me because several hundred of you have responded, and I, of course, have tried to respond, but I'm kind of buried. Having a generic email means that other people can go look at stuff, and it also gives us a cleaner audit trail where you're not stuck with me apologizing for how long it might take to respond. I am trying to respond to everything within a few days, but it's a challenge right now because I am getting a few hundred emails a day with the day job and the insurance. So it's we're very committed to getting this in place for you. It's the highest impact thing we could think of, but it is also tough slogging. So anyway, here's our usual follow-up questions. I don't know, Steve, if there are more questions.
That's all I've seen so far here.
Okay, and again, I say this every time, but I'm hearing more and more of a challenge of getting treasurers. There is an appreciation for how tough, just how complicated. There's complications in the job. There's compliance elements, and so I really want to finish with this. Thanking you for what you do. For your own church, for our church, and even sharing ideas and making suggestions helps us figure out how to help the most people. So really appreciate it. And that's all we've got, sir.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, there's some discussion about means for the CRA access in my business account and so on. I do strongly recommend you have a look at that that page in ChurchX, because I think it will answer a bunch of questions.
Yeah, I'm looking at a bit of it now. If it's about having access to a CRA account, we do have a help desk for that. Clyde and Rose Camborne have been helping all kinds of people over the last couple of years get set up on CRA. And being online is just, particularly with the government, is just more or less the norm now. So if that's the issue, we've got CRA helps as an inbox to that.
Sure. And so just in the last minutes of our webinar, let me take you over to the course page at ChurchX, where we are collecting the materials that are coming out of this group, and it is growing as we move through it. So those of you who have found your way into ChurchX already, you'll find this is familiar. But basically, we've organized it so that your basic information to participate is right at the top. And then here are the PowerPoint slides used in the webinars, including the ones from tonight. And I'm trying to put the most recent ones at the top so that you can find them more quickly. Here are resources and contacts. And contacts for action, I've just listed those out of the last slide, and they're here. So these ones that are indented in were available last month. Here are the two new ones that were referred to tonight in Eric's presentation. The UCC user guide for Team Pay by ADP. You can download that from here. And these titles are all links. And then the 2022 year-end payroll reminders. So you can find those there if you need to. Here's the recording of this webinar, and it's actually already at YouTube because I've been live streaming it. So you or your best friends can go and find it here, and you can click it to watch it there, or you can go over to YouTube and find it. And then list of webinars, recordings from previous webinars. So it's all there. And as the program continues month by month by month, we'll just continue to add stuff under each heading. We'll add it at the top of the heading so that you can find the most recent stuff quickly. If you're having trouble with ChurchX or finding your way around, by all means, drop me an email and we'll be delighted to make that available. Are these only available to United Church staff? No, anybody who is registered for this program can see all of this stuff that's here at ChurchX.
And I just want to qualify, the ADP one may disappear for that reason, but right now it's there.
So get it while it's hot, is what you're saying.
So download it.
So this is the one he's talking about right here.
Yeah, everything else there stays.
Are other denominations welcome, Kelly? From my perspective, yes. And Liz, your office admin could register too. Absolutely. No problem here. There's no guarantee that other denominations will find this as useful as we do, because a lot of what Eric presents is denomination specific. But anything that is related to CRA and Canadian government stuff is universal to all of Canada.
Yeah, and we actually, we don't think ourselves as competing folks. But we share stuff across denominations routinely.
All the time, sure.
Yeah.
The other thing to say is that these recordings are hosted at the United Church of Canada's YouTube site. So if you go to YouTube and look for the United Church of Canada channel, then you'll find them under their own playlist on webinars for church treasurers, and they're all listed there too. So you don't even need to go into ChurchX to find the recordings if you just want to point a recording to somebody. But if you want to get any of these resources, we're trying to locate them all in one place so that they're quick for you. And this way we have we're able to send out reminders, and we've got a list of who's coming, and it keeps us a little more accountable that way too.
Great. Well, listen, I just want to do a shout out to Steve here too. You've made this stuff. I've been talking about cloning you for almost a decade now. The earliest days of webinars, it was Steve and I actually, I think at the United Church, that were dabbling with this stuff. I was dabbling, you were learning all the time, and you just made it so accessible for so many people. And part of that's just a welcoming personality, but also because you're a geek that can talk to the rest of us, and it's just so appreciated.
Well, it's a pleasure and an honor, and thanks for the appreciation. Friends, we're going to draw this to a close. I'm going to take Eric and Clyde into a breakout room again so that they can say what they really think about me without you listening. And we'll look forward to seeing the rest of you. And can I remember the date? It's the fourth Thursday of November, whatever day of the week, whatever day of the month that is.
Yeah.
The 23rd.
Thank you.
Thanks,
look forward
everybody.
to seeing you then. Take care, everybody. Good night.
Oh.